Hello everybody and welcome back. As usual, I am your host Chase Bierenkoven. That is the 2026 Subaru Solterra and this is the Overrun. So before we get into things today, I want to just give you a quick little update on what we're going to be doing here, because this is not our usual review format. This is a first look at the car. Although we are in Colorado, Subaru flew everybody else out to me for once. Well, not because of me, but here to give everybody a look at the refreshed Solterra. And so we don't have pricing just yet, although we should have it by the time the video goes live. And we are also not going to talk competitors yet, namely because of the former. We don't have pricing yet. It would be a little bit unfair to compare without knowing exactly how much all of this new stuff is going to cost. So with that said, let's talk about what some of the new stuff is, because there's a lot new. So much, in fact, that Subaru's lawyers are apparently okay with the company calling this the all-new Solterra. It is still technically the same car that debuted a few years ago, which is, of course, corporate twins with the Toyota BZ4X EV. However, there are some key Subaru differences like standard all-wheel drive and a little bit more ground clearance, but none of that's new. The new stuff that we're here to talk about today is addressing a lot of the traditional weaknesses that the Solterra, and of course by extension the Toyota twin, debuted with a few years back. That means range and power most chiefly, and those are fixed. There's more range, there's more power, there's also some updated looks that we'll get into in a moment. There's also a new charging port and some new tech inside, as well as a whole lot of mechanical changes underneath. So what we're going to do today is we're going to get into all of those things, and I'm going to hopefully at the end of this video arrive at a little bit of a conclusion as to whether or not Subaru is sort of back on track with creating a more competitive, more compelling electric compact SUV with just a little bit of off-road flair. Okay, so let's start with styling, because there is some new look to the all-new Subaru Solterra. Let's start at the front here. This refreshed front fascia is new, otherwise it wouldn't be refreshed. And there are a couple of changes here that I think you should see. For one, there's these new headlights, these new split design 6-point headlights. The fog light assembly is located down here, and the front end as a whole, as you can tell, is much smoother than the old car. On top of that, this Subaru badge right here in the middle, that's supposed to be illuminated. Hopefully you can see that it is in fact on. There's a little light around here. Anyways, let's move down the side. I want to tell you a little bit about this black cladding here. So apparently this stuff is supposed to be body colored. So in this case, it would normally be white instead of black, or if you got a red car, it'd be red, right? Subaru says that these are Euro spec cars insofar as aesthetics, but not any mechanically different than something that you would get from the dealership tomorrow. The only difference is this black cladding will instead be body colored. Anyways, let's move down to the profile shot here. There's really not a whole lot new in profile, but these wheels are new. That is an updated design. And then around the back is where the rest of the aesthetic changes are taking place. Let's start up here at the top. I want to show you these little like winglet things. They're on either end. I think they look kind of cool. I think it gives it a little bit more of a sporty look. And this lighting element here is also new. You can see that there's some Subaru badging back here. And down here you've got the Solterra badge. This has got the trim on it. Ours is the touring model, which is the most loaded one. And then over here is, of course, the Subaru all-wheel drive badge that has been on pretty much every Subaru I can remember. Under the hood is where the majority of the changes for 2026 lie. For starters, there's more power. Base models make 233 horsepower, while the new for 2026 XT trim makes 338 horsepower. I should note that Subaru doesn't quote torque figures due to the way that they're calculated slightly differently with electric motors. It's all a little bit weird, but those are the horsepower figures. The battery is also larger, rising from 73 to 75 kilowatts. And on top of that, you can now charge much faster too. That's thanks in part to a new battery preconditioning system, which will help get the battery to the right temperature so that you can charge more efficiently once the battery is at a set temperature. And then on top of that, Subaru has upgraded the general charging speed, and now you'll be able to charge it up to 150 kilowatts. The automaker also wants you to know that the car will come with a level 2 charging cable and some various adapters. And you may need those adapters because just over here on the right-hand fender is a new NACS charging port. That's an acronym, North American Charging Standard. That was first popularized by Tesla a few years ago, and a lot of automakers have since started to move towards that standard because it's a, well, standard now. More people use it, the cabling is a little bit thinner, and there are a couple of other fringe benefits to using that particular style of port, but rest assured, you'll be able to charge wherever you need using the provided adapters, level 2 cable, or some combination thereof. But what really matters is that you should be able to take this battery from 10% to 80% in about 30 minutes once the battery is preconditioned and it's plugged in, of course, at up to that 150 kilowatts. All right, next I want to take you on a tour of the Solterra's interior because there's also a couple new things for 2026 inside. So let's go take a look real quick. Let's start with the color here. This blue and black leather combination here is new for 2026, and I think rather good looking. This touring model, of course, is about as loaded as it gets, and I'll give you a moment to kind of take things in before we hop inside and I take you through some of the tech features. Let's start, of course, with this big fat screen in the center here. This is Toyota's proprietary infotainment stuff with a little Subaru sprinkled on top. But it functions just like the new Toyota stuff, which means that it's actually really good. The map is nice and responsive. You have wireless phone projection, as you can see here. I'm using Android Auto, and you can access all of your car's settings through this little hotbar here. The climate controls are not physical. They are in the screen here, but at least they're pinned, and I haven't really found myself needing to play with them a whole lot. This is how you adjust your temperature here, and it is a physical dial, which is kind of nice. And of course, your passenger has one as well. Now let's move over here to this little display screen. This is basically all of your important mechanical information, stuff like your trip computer. You can also get some media in there, as you can see. Your trip computer, all of that stuff is going to be up in here. You've got your speedometer. This little gauge over here measures the amount of power output versus regen you're getting off of the braking system, which you can control off of these paddles here. This is more regen and this is less regen. And as you can see, this steering wheel has a lot of physical controls on it as well, which I'm a fan of, but I have a problem here. Depending on the way that the steering wheel is oriented, you may or may not be able to see some of the bottom readouts down here on this display. And so you kind of have to play with this whole setup to get things the way that you want it. And it's not the most convenient thing ever. Anyways, let's move into the center console where you can see there's everything you need to control all of the car's remaining parameters. Here, this is your gear selector. You kind of have to like push and twist, and it's gonna scream at me because there's a tripod outside. So let's throw it back in park. And then you can push and twist the other way for reverse. Here you have your parking brake, your brake hold, your camera system, which I appreciate and is rather helpful. This is a cool one. It's got a 360 camera, and then on top of that, if you go into X mode, you get a different suite of cameras once you open the view again. You get these wheel down cameras. You can see me spinning the steering wheels. It's a live feed. And then you get these tilt and roll sensors in here too. And then down here is where you get into X mode and all of that stuff. This is for, it's called grip control. It's basically like off-road cruise control. And then these are your drive modes. And of course, everybody knows this one. This is the fun button. Anyways, there's these two wireless charging pads here. Subaru says these are 15 watts, and I have some complaining to do about them because wireless charging is a little bit useless, at least with my phone personally. Your mileage may vary, but the problem that I'm having is that my phone gets very hot while it's charging wirelessly, and because there's no ventilation down there, the phone continues to get hot, and eventually the performance is throttled. It leads to some connection issues, and of course my phone feeling like it just came out of the oven. And because I don't like pizza hot phone, I just use the USB-C cable Subaru so kindly provided. There is a USB-C port under the center console, as well as a little bit of storage that I'll show you. And you can see you can get your whole hand in here. You got your USB-C port over here, and then there's also down there a cigarette-style 115 volt outlet. Now let's get in back and I'll show you the rest of the stuff. We're gonna go for one take here. And get out of the rain fast, I might melt. Okay. In back, well, there's a lot of room and a lot of light, thanks in part to this new big sunroof. The sunroof itself isn't new, but Subaru was able to remove a cross member here by increasing the car's structural rigidity. But anyways, as you can see, I also have tons of legroom behind myself here, and really a lot of headroom as well. As you can see, there's plenty of room up here, no problems, no complaints, and these seats are really comfortable. Finally, back here, I do just want to touch on the center console. These are heated in higher trims, and then on top of that, these two USB-C ports here, these are 60-watt ports, which means that you can get some serious charging done on them. You can use them to charge something like a laptop or your Nintendo Switch or your Steam Deck because there's enough available power here. And with that, we're gonna wrap the interior segment there, and I'm gonna get him back and show you the cargo capacity. Okay, so let's talk cargo space. Back here with the rear seats up, you get about 24 cubic feet. If you drop them, that number swells to 64 cubic feet of cargo space, which should be enough for most large items. I do just want to point out that the slopey rear hatch is going to eat into some of that large item storage. So if you're packing something really, really huge, you're definitely going to want to make sure it clears these pillars back here, lest you punch out your back window. But hopefully that doesn't happen to you. And there's a couple amenities back here I think that you should take a look at regardless. The first being this cargo cover. You can, of course, just pull it out and put it in the slots, and then boom, cargo cover. And on some trim levels back down here, you also get this 120 volt outlet so you can power some things off of it. It's a household style outlet, which would be great for car camping. You can keep a couple things powered up with that. And we've got the usual press car detritus back here, filming bag for scale. There's a pretty good amount of room back here. Okay, so let's talk pricing real quick. Now, as I said at the top of the video, Subaru has not given me access to pricing just yet. Apparently they're finalizing a couple of details. I would imagine it has something to do with recent tariff-related pricing increases, especially given that a lot of the brand's manufacturing is located overseas. Regardless, we're not 100% sure if this is going to be affected by tariffs in particular. Regardless, Subaru says that there are going to be price increases in some places and potentially even pricing decreases in others, which would be really great to see because Subaru just cut pricing on the previous generation Solterras by a pretty substantial amount. So hopefully the refresh doesn't completely undo all of that. Okay, so I want to start my driving impressions with some off-road driving, not just because that's where we are now, but because that's where we have spent a lot of time today, and that's kind of why you would buy a Subaru in the first place. Obviously, you want that traditional SUV body style with some of the Subaru benefits like the added ground clearance and some confidence off-road. And by and large, the new Solterra EV does inspire a decent little bit of confidence off-road. This obviously is not a serious off-roader, but Subaru gave us a little off-road course to try things out on, and it performed well. Now, obviously, this is Subaru's own course, so of course it did well, but I'm still pretty impressed with the way that this thing goes down the, well, less well-paved portions of our drive segment today. As you can see, it's pretty bumpy now, and the ride off-road is definitely a little bumpy, but it's nothing intolerable. On the road, however, it's very different, and the ride is pretty refined. There's definitely a little body roll in the corners, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I did just want to circle back to one more thing to finish off my off-road impressions. We also got to play with Subaru's X-Mode all-wheel drive software during that little course, and that has a couple of different drive modes that alters the way the all-wheel drive system and the dual motors behave to give you better traction in certain circumstances over looser or softer terrain. And we also got to play with Subaru's hill descent control software, which works pretty darn well, and it's sort of an off-road cruise control system. It's grip control system. Basically, it sets a speed and will maintain it over a given route. It works just like cruise control on the highway. Now, let's also talk about highway manners, noise, vibration, and harshness, all that good stuff. This is a very, very, very quiet car. You don't really even hear the motors a whole lot. Subaru says that it was able to add a lot more structural adhesive and insulation to the car, which of course makes it more structurally rigid and also quieter. That means that the car is significantly more refined to drive than the old Solterra. But Does this fix everything in the old Solterra? I kind of think that it does. The extra power is much appreciated, and it's way easier to get this thing off the line. It feels really crisp and pretty snappy. You don't get that massive snap of torque that a lot of EVs have, but it'll definitely throw your head back if you start from a standstill. As far as the driver aids and tech go, this has Subaru's EyeSight system, and it works phenomenally, just like it does in a majority of their other cars. The system offers adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, and basically every other advanced driver aid that you can possibly think of. It works really great, but it is a little tricky sometimes to use or see because of that issue I talked about in the interior segment, where the top of the steering wheel rim will kind of interfere with the lower portion of this display. I kind of think that Subaru should just do away with all of this and go full Tesla with the screen in the center. I'm not a big screen guy, but I think right now that might be the best solution for them. But anyways, that's really neither here nor there. What you need to know about driving this thing is it still drives like a Subaru, it goes off-road like a Subaru, and most importantly, it also drives like a much more refined Subaru Solterra EV. So far, the 2026 Subaru Solterra continues to deliver on what it promises. That means more range, more power, more features. And all of those things are good because the previous generation was certainly lacking in a lot of those areas. To boot, the tech is really great, and the fact that the dash of Subaru-ness is here is really nice. That standard all-wheel drive may increase price a little bit, but it does get you standard all-wheel drive, of course. There's also the little bit of Subaru off-road practicality baked in here, the X-mode drive modes. That's a bit of a mouthful, work really great, and this car feels pretty solid off-road. If you want to do just a little light off-roading, the Solterra is probably going to be just fine. And with that, I think it's probably time to wrap this one up. I want to thank Subaru for having us out, and of course I want to thank you, dear viewer, for watching, because without you, we wouldn't be getting invited places by Subaru. So thanks for watching, and please do remember to like and subscribe. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.